Hey Young America, this is Jasmine, and I'm so glad that you guys tune in again to the weekly address to Young Americans, where we come together to talk about things that matter to us, okay? The show is sponsored by an organization called YOU, which stands for Young, Organized, and United. So, today's topic is called Loans Are Like Borrowing from a Friend Named Wells Fargo. So, today's show is going to focus on paying back our loans, okay? Now, this is a sensitive subject for a lot of us because it has been something that has played a major role in our lives. It's played the same equal role to paying our rent, even to feeding ourselves. And for some of us, it's actually played an emotional distress on us as we've tried to figure out how can we handle paying back for our education, you know, and balancing everything else in our lives. So I want to open up today's show with a story, okay? And it's my story about how I've been able to figure out how I was going to do it, because it did throw me off. So what happened was, back in 2010, after I graduated, a few months after school, I knew that I had this grace period, you know, this magic world where, you know, I had time to pay back my student loans. So I got my job. I knew that time had passed. But then one day I get a call from my mom, and she's like, you know, Jasmine, Wells Fargo called today, and they said you missed 2 payments. And I was just thrown. Like, I was like, huh? You know? And I really didn't know. And I wouldn't lie to you guys. I'm not lying. But it's just one of those things where it threw me for a left hook. But that phone call that day opened up the floodgates. Because not only did I have to recognize that I owed Wells Fargo, but I actually owed 4 different loan servicers. I couldn't even believe it. Like, I had known throughout my years that I was paying for myself to get through college, and that's loans and a little bit of back payment, you know, that I would just pay during the semester. But it was huge for me. And when I began to call them, I was terrified at the amount of money that they were telling me I owed. I was just like, I was arguing with the lady. I was like, look now, you wouldn't even pay that much money for no bill every month or whatever, let alone can I? And I just started working. So, the moral of the story is that regardless of me finding out all this information and understanding that I had all these loans payments, I had to figure out what I was going to do. Because regardless, I knew, just like the rest of us know, we have to pay our loans back, okay? Because not only is it for the sake of our individual futures to pay our loans back, but it also plays a big role for our generation, okay? So today's show is going to be focusing on 3 different groups of people, okay? So we're going to focus on those who cannot pay right now. We're going to focus on those who can kind of pay right now. And then we're going to get to those who can pay but just don't feel like it, okay? So first, let's go to the ones who cannot do it right now. All right, we all understand that. We have all been there, okay? But the fact is that you can't hide from your loans. You got to go for them. So my advice to you today is to call your loan servicer and find out your options, okay? There are 2 that I can tell you about right now, and there are probably other ones that have developed over time. But the 2 that I can say that gives you time to figure things out and to plan, one is called a deferment. A deferment is when you can temporarily hold off on paying your loans. That's like 1, 2, or 3 months. And they're very nice about doing it. You can call them, say, I just need 3 months to get it together. They'll send you a letter. They'll send you an email letting you know when your payments will restart. Okay? So that's 1. The second thing is a forbearance. Now, forbearance is stronger. Okay? That's for those who really cannot pay right now, and 3 months is not going to cut it. Like, it's just not happening right now. Now, what happens with the forbearance is that your loan servicer can give you up to 12 months without paying, okay? The only issue is that when you do that, during that time, your interest is still accruing, okay, on your principal, which is the large lump sum of what you owe. So when you come around that next year to be able to pay, it is going to be a little bit higher than what you left with the year before. But the thing is you still have a year to work it out. So those 2 options work very well. They give you time to breathe. And for those who have rough months, deferments are perfect because there is no accruing of interest or anything when you're on a deferment, but a forbearance there is. All right. So those are 2 options for those who cannot pay right now. For those who can kind of pay right now, like myself, okay, there have been some things that come about over these last few years as the Obama administration and the government, everybody knows that we are having a tough time paying these bills back. So one option is income-based repayment. Now this is a big win, okay? Because no matter where you sit on the totem pole, they can calculate a certain percentage of your income. I think it's 10%. They can calculate it, and that's all that they can take from you, okay? I think that's an excellent way to begin to pay down on your loans and not let them push to the side and accrue, you know, but it doesn't completely wipe you out of money. Okay, so that's one option that's been very strong, highly favored, and I believe you could do it across loan servicers. So you should look into it. There may be some different rules on private loans, but I know you could do it for federal loans. So that's one. The second option is one that I took. I took the first one too on one of mine, but I took this other one. People are a little weary of it, but it's extending your loan period. So instead of doing the 10-year period that they allow you to pay your loans back in, I went to 20 years. Okay, so I know people are like, oh, I don't want to wait till 20 years to pay my loans back. Well, let me tell you my theory behind it. So the reason I went to 20 years is because my hope is that, you know, eventually I can handle these payments right now with the hopes that I'm going to plan to double up as I grow in my career and grow in my salary range. But for right now, even if I had the 10 period, it wasn't going to, the 10-year period, it wasn't going to work for me, and the income base still wasn't enough. So I had to really, really lower down on it so it works for me. So to each his own, do what works best for you, but know that those are two options. Okay. So the very last one is for those who can pay right now but just don't want to. All right, now, I'm just going to be flat out, don't sit on this, okay? Now, the one thing I want to compare this to is, you know how you have a best friend who always knows everywhere you go? They can always find you no matter what. Now, I want you to change that friend's name to Wells Fargo. Okay, these banks can find you wherever, okay, and they really can. They can find you at your workplace, and they could do things that are out of your control and honestly unnecessary, okay? They could do things like garnishing your payment, okay? They can send your payments to credit, you know, to the credit people, and they can ruin your credit. So those are two things that are unnecessary and don't need to happen if you have the means to pay for it. And even for those who don't have the means to pay for it, this is another reason to actually call them. Because if you don't have the money, why in the world would you want them to come in and take more when you don't have it in the first place? So, everybody, the moral of the story is, don't sit on this because they will come. So you're going to have to figure out a way to begin to work on this. So that's it of my advice for today. I just want to really make a big point about that if we don't begin to handle this individually for us, this isn't just something that plays a role in my life or this person's life or this person's life, but as a generation, this plays a role in a bigger picture, which is called our debt. You know, our debt as a generation. And if we begin to work on it together, then we can begin to solve that problem. And this is one way. As we know, student debt is playing a big role, just as housing debt. So let's all work together. Take your small steps, be responsible, and do what you got to do. And trust me, I have all the compassion in the world for if this is not an easy subject or pill to swallow, okay? So we're going to go ahead and end today's show, and I'm hopeful that you tune in to next week as we are going into tax season. And so my question for you is tax season like Christmas or is it doomsday for you? Regardless, tune in next week because we're going to look at how we could turn tax season into an opportunity, whether it's this year or the year to come. Thanks so much and have a great day.